What are you saying? You're starstruck?
I'm a little starstruck. Yeah.
You cut out.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I've been watching your videos every day for the past week, man. And it's just like, you go on your YouTube channel and every one of those videos has less than 100 views. I'm just thinking to myself, dude, this is cool. This is fucking gold. And I feel starstruck, man. It's great to meet you.
Oh, I'm so happy. Have you caught the I Teach My Wife Sales videos as well?
No, I've not.
You gotta check those out too. Those are fun, man. Check them out on my feed. My wife teaches sales. She's awesome.
Nice.
Better at it than I am. What do you do? She's right there in the back. Say hi, hon.
Hi there.
Say hi, hon.
I'm Sam.
That's Sam, hon.
Hi, Sam.
Nice to meet you.
I'm in my pajamas.
It's all right, hon. He doesn't mind. He's seen people in pajamas before. It's all right. Sam, where are you calling in from today?
So I'm calling from Denver, Colorado. I'm here at Marketo, which is now an Adobe company in Denver.
Dude, so that is the state that I want to move to. It's awesome there. I mean, you must be an outdoorsy guy, right? Obviously.
So I actually, I was from Texas. I moved from Texas to Denver specifically for this job 6 months ago. And it is beautiful, man. It's beautiful. You got to be outdoorsy if you're going to be in Denver.
So do you hike, bike, run, all that stuff?
Well, these days it's snowboarding. But, I got here in August. So starting in a couple of months, it's going to be mountain biking. It's going to be hiking, fishing, all that good stuff.
Dude, that's the best, man. So you got out there from Marketo.
Yep.
Well, you've been there 6 months, you said?
Yeah, about 6-7 months. Yeah.
And you're loving it.
It's beautiful, man.
How is it different than Texas? Where were you in Texas?
So I was in Fort Worth. I graduated from TC, Texas Christian University. And I started my career at 22 years old, full cycle sales. It was a mid-level sales job that required 5 to 7 years of sales experience. And you would have loved this. I drove up to Norman, Oklahoma, and I pitched a regional sales manager at 22 on her product. And she said, that was absolutely awful, but I appreciate what you did. And
what was awful? Like you went to go interview for a job, and the way you interviewed for it was you tried to sell her own product, like from a prospecting perspective?
I didn't even have the interview. I just saw the job description. I just saw the posting, and I just drove up there and knocked on the door and pitched her on the next step. It was a 3-hour drive. Kind of told her.
You pitched her on yourself and why you should get the job?
I pitched her on her product that she was selling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so to show her that you could sell.
Yeah, exactly. She said that wasn't a very good pitch, but I appreciate what you did. Let's get started with the interview process. And did a little bit more homework on the industry, got a little better, and ended up being the Fort Worth rep.
What company was this?
It's called Next Step. It's a professional employer organization. So I know you're in HR, kind of the HR background. It's HR sourcing. So
rather than sending in a resume and a cover letter and being like a white circle in a sea of white circles, you get in your car, dude, you drive over there, you go into the actual place of business, and you ask to speak to this person. Is that kind of what you did?
Yep.
And they said, wait here, and she comes out?
Yep. Isn't that great?
Then walk me through that, because that's kind of fascinating. And then what do you do?
Well, and then the meeting lasted maybe 5 or 6 minutes. It was just literally me out in front of Next Step. She came out. I shook her hand. I said, hey, look, I came from Fort Worth. Just give me a couple of minutes. I had the job posting, showed her the job posting, said, look, I know you're the regional sales manager. I did some research. Let me just pitch you on Next Step. I did quite a bit of homework on you guys. Just see if I'm in the ballpark here. And, at this point, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but I kind of pitched her on how, hey, look, you're the CEO of a company that has 12 employees. You don't have an HR manager. It might make sense, instead of hiring an HR manager for $45K, to consider outsourcing that to this company. And it was very shaky. I was nervous as hell. She was like, yeah, I got to be honest, that wasn't a good pitch, but I really like what you're doing. I really appreciate kind of the initiative. And she said, let's at least kind of go through the interview process. And so I went back to Fort Worth, studied everything on HR, benefits, workers' comp, payroll, and came back with a better pitch. And they ended up saying, all right, you got the job.
Dude, that is one of the greatest stories I've ever heard in my entire life. Let me ask you a question. Do you think if you would have just sent in a resume and cover letter, let's say the cover letter was even amazing, that you would have gotten this opportunity?
Zero chance. Zero
chance. Why do you say that? Because just so many cover letters are coming in.
Yeah. And because, I mean, I'm 22 years old. You know, the reality is the next oldest sales rep was like 31 in the company. So, and what was really interesting was after that conversation that I had with Brianna, the regional sales manager, when I interview again, they basically said, and the reality is you're 22 years old, you haven't sold anything to anybody ever. We really appreciate kind of energy and your enthusiasm. But the reality is you're going to need some help from the regional sales manager. So then they started to bring the regional sales manager down to Fort Worth to help me actually close deals. And it started to work, right? And so then the next year, they decided to start hiring 23, 24, 25-year-old kids out of college. And like realized, oh my God, this is actually going to scale because people like me are going to be able to set up meetings. The regional sales manager can come in and close the deals, you know?
What did you learn when you came in that was the tipping point for you in terms of when it started to click? Because you mentioned you came in and you didn't have the experience, you had the desire, but then someone coached you and something clicked along the way and you got really good, so good that you became a model for how they started to hire going forward. Tell me a little bit about your mentor and tell me a little bit about what he or she taught you and what you think your turning point was.
It's a really good question. Really good question. I would say at the end of the day, man, it was grit. Grit was the engine, you know, because the reality is it's grit and it's also transparency and authenticity, right? Because when I would walk into a meeting at 22 years old, I would try and act like the CEO of my own company, right? And I would try and be on the same level of that CEO, 55 years old, who's way more intelligent than me. But the reality is I'm not, right? I'm 22, 23 years old, fresh out of college. My new manager came in and said, he's like, dude, just be transparent, be authentic. You know, go in there and let them know this is your third meeting ever, that you just graduated from TCU. But also do your homework. You know, like I graduated from TCU, but this guy graduated from UT, and I know there's a big football game coming up. The first 5 minutes of that sales conversation is me telling them this is my third meeting ever. We laugh about it, but I'm excited to kick his tail in the football game the next week, you know? And all of a sudden, he becomes very receptive to me talking about his health insurance package, you know?
I love it. You know, I talk about this all the time, that your prospects ask themselves 4 questions before they decide if they want to do business with you. And the first question is, should I pay attention to you? And if you get past that, the second one is exactly what you're talking about, which is, do I like you? Yeah. And I think we've all had that experience when we meet someone for the first time and we're like, I like that person, whether it's something that you said in an email or a connection that you made. And I don't think you did it in a salesy sort of way. Like you were genuinely interested in football and it happened to be something that this person was interested in. Because I think you can't fake that stuff. And I think when it's genuine and you're really curious, and it's, as you said, authentic, it comes through and it makes people feel good. When you connect in that way, when you make people feel good, oxytocin is actually released into the bloodstream, which creates a likability and a trust, and you want more of that feeling. You want to be and you want to tell people more things. You're more likely to open up and talk to people, and the more conversations you have with people and the more times you talk to them, the more money you make. It's just a fact. And the fewer conversations you have, the less money you make. So that is an awesome story, man. How did you start to get up to speed on the industry? Because at some point when you get past that second question, the third one is, can you help me solve a problem that I have? Or can you help me do something better that I want to achieve? So at some point you have to have the expertise to and you didn't have any, you've never done the job of the person that you're selling to. Like who are you? You're 22 years old. This person's been in HR. What did you do to sort of level up to hang, so to speak?
Number one, it's trial and error. Number two, the company, I was really lucky. They invested quite a bit in me. Like it was my job to set up that meeting. It was my job to get them interested in doing an RFP and getting me all these different HR documents, health insurance documents, census data, social security numbers, like really important documents. And it was my job to take that into our underwriters and get the proposals set. But then for the actual proposal for the first year or two, I'd have the regional sales manager come down and I would record every single meeting. And I would figure out, how is he introing the conversation? How is he talking to the CEO versus the chief HR person versus the manager? I would figure out what questions he's asking and when. After the call, I would dissect everything and say, why did you ask this question versus this question? So it was really just grit, you know, at the end of the day.
It's almost like you were kind of playing the game tape.
Yeah.
And kind of watching the game tape and breaking it down specifically. Mm-hmm. And I think the best way to learn is exactly how you're learning, which is I listen to someone that's good at something, and I'm kind of dissecting how they do it. It's how we learn how to paint.
Yeah.
There was this guy, Bob Moss, I think was his name, Bob Ross, way before your time. He was a guy that used to paint. You know this guy?
I know. I used to watch Family Guy, and they had a clip where they made fun of Bob Ross.
So he was a guy that used to paint on an easel back on PBS when I was about your age, and you would be able to learn how to make trees just by watching him, you know, make the trees. And I think it's a great way to learn is to just watch someone that's good at something and to just emulate them. I always say, you want to be a millionaire, you hang out with millionaires. You want to be good at sales, you hang out with someone that's really good. There's probably people at your company that are awesome at selling, like you just latched onto. And it was really nice that that person took you under his wing, man. It's awesome. What about things did you also do any like reading about like sales or psychology or anything like off on the side, or was it mostly just mirroring and mentoring within the company in terms of your learning plan?
I played around with the learning quite a bit. I mean, I got Audible. I mean, it was outside sales, right? So I didn't want to just listen to music all day. So I was listening to like Grant Cardone books or Gary Vaynerchuk books, or just a bunch of like, you know, self-help books that just keep you in a positive mindset at all times. But really at the end of the day, what helped me out the most was just mentorship. And then I like how you kind of bring up the metaphor of math flashcards, because I was big into math flashcards as a kid, you know. At the end of the day, like all this is how do you respond to 10 to 20 different frequently asked questions or objections? How are you introing the conversation? I can come up with, you know, 3 or 5 different ways and just review it over and over and over and over again to the point where I'm not even thinking about it. And now I'm focused on how that person is responding to how I'm responding to the objection, which is going to help, you know, further progress that deal forward a little bit.
That's awesome.
But you know, like as I was watching some of your content, it hit me that, you know, one of the reasons why the PEO deal, I was so successful with it, was I would talk about the challenge from the very get. I would talk about the challenge of the CEO receiving these 15 to 20% renewal increases year over year because we're in the heart of the Affordable Care Act. And I'd say, look, man, I have no idea if we're a good fit, but I'm just going to be in your area tomorrow afternoon. Do you mind if I swing by like 2:30? I can even just drop a cup of coffee. You know, I just want to introduce myself, show you how we're going to be able to how we could help you get around the 15 to 20% renewal increase. It was a super simple challenge that every business owner was experiencing. But now that I'm at,
yeah, something that's awesome about that, and it's one of the biggest mistakes I think I see that you're not doing, which is you're not starting with the solution and your benefits. You're actually starting with the problem, and the problem is the thing that gets the attention, the struggle that I'm having. It's awesome that you kind of led with that, and I would imagine that attributes to a lot of your success. You're not really leading with, because the solution doesn't really matter if I don't have the problem. I could have a liquid that unshrinks cashmere sweaters because you accidentally put it in the dryer, which is awesome, except if I don't have a cashmere sweater, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
And so it was really great that you kind of latched onto this problem and this struggle. And I also like the language that you use, which is potentially help. And so it doesn't feel as assumptive. And I think that also probably attributes to your success as well.
So Josh, here's my challenge now though, because the reality is every one of those business owners was experiencing a challenge. You know, like even if it was an 8% renewal increase, that's going to yield, you know, $50K plus. It's a lot of money for every CEO. But now with Marketo, it just, the sale is much more complex. The value proposition is so much more complex. If I'm talking to the VP of sales, it's going to be a different conversation than the VP of marketing and the director of analytics. You know, the VP of marketing that I talked to, they could have a problem with reporting, or they could have a problem with their current marketing automation platform scaling, or they could have a problem, you know, some other 2 or 3 other different problems inside their marketing platform, right? So like, I feel like, okay, I'm talking to this senior VP of marketing, and I want to hit the right challenge.
Yes.
But I don't know, kind of, would you?
Yeah. So I'll give you some advice. So that's actually a really good thing. I'll tell you why it's a positive thing that you solve lots of different problems. One is, as you know, when we're doing cold outreach, sometimes we have to reach out to people more than once. We're sending a series of cold, and you know this, you're in Marketo, you're sending a series of cold emails, and you can actually focus on one problem per email. So imagine you solve 3 or 4 problems. You can address one of those problems per email. If you're doing a cold call, you could use language that sounds something like this. You know, hey Sam, I don't know if this is a fit for you, but I was recently helping another VP of marketing. He was struggling with these 3 challenges. A, B, and C. I don't suppose any of those resonate with you, do they? And then just shut your mouth. So you could phrase it like that. He was struggling with these challenges that we were able to actually help him with. It was A, B, and C. I don't suppose you have any of those challenges? Yeah. Or you could say something like, we helped this VP up the street with these 2 challenges, and I thought you'd be interested too. And then just shut your mouth.
Yeah.
And then if you're hitting on the right problems, they'll be like, what do you mean? We already have something like that. What are you talking about? Because if you're getting to someone when they have that struggle, they're not going to shut you down completely. If that problem resonates, if you're leading with a problem or a struggle, that's what's going to get someone's attention. Now with outbound, you know this. I do this at workshops all the time. This is like a Chet Holmes thing that I learned from him. Is you get in a room and 300 people, I'd ask people, raise your hand if you're buying a computer today. And like 3 or 4 hands go up. Mm-hmm. I say, raise your hand if you're going to buy a computer one day. Everyone's hand goes up. And that's outbound. Like my computer right now takes 3 or 4 minutes to boot up. I'll sit through a computer demo because I got to work till 5 anyway and I'll burn an hour. But I'm not buying a computer right now because it's booting up. So if you don't know where I am on the struggleometer, I call it, how big is the struggle? You can waste a lot of time with people that just have computers that are slow to boot up. Fast forward a couple months because things change in time. And all of a sudden now my hard drive's making a weird sound and I got a big keynote presentation coming up. I'm in the red zone. So we have to know as salespeople if we're in the red zone or not. And if we're not, we have to know how to get out and have a strategy. And you're going to know about this from Marketo to nurture them so that when they are in the red zone, we're top of mind. I mean, my LinkedIn feed is my nurture track. When I talk to people and they're not a fit, they keep seeing my content on their feed. And then when it's time, they come back when they're in the red zone. I don't think we can create the urgency. I think we can shine a light on stuff and see if the urgency is there. Like by way of example, with the laptop example, the salesperson could have said, hey, Josh, are you aware that when your computer is slow to boot up, it could mean that you're about to have a hard drive failure and lose all your data? And I might say, well, what do you mean? And then he might say, well, can we give you a free scan to see if everything's okay? And that could get me into the red zone depending on how that scan goes. Yeah. He didn't create he didn't create it. He's shining a light on it to see if that's lighting me up. And I think one of the mistakes that I've made in my career and a lot of salespeople make is spending too much time on people that have a problem, but the problem's not big enough. The problem alone isn't big enough to change. Like you have problems all the time you live with, I'm sure.
Right.
Maybe your teeth isn't perfect or your car is this or my computer's that. And we're like, it's just not big enough of a pain yet. And so we have to know how to ask the right questions, and then we have to know how to get out so that we don't waste our time on people that aren't ready to buy this quarter.
Definitely.
And you can waste a lot of time with people that are not ready just now. And that's just the nature of outbound.
Josh, to your point, like I listened to your Sales Hacker podcast where I'm not sure who was interviewing you, but he mentioned that it makes a lot of sense to align your nurture efforts with marketing. And you said, no, don't do that. Why don't you just go ahead and create your own videos? And I'm thinking,
on, buddy. I'll tell you why I did, because of what you just said earlier in this interview. And what you said in this interview is exactly right. That person that you connected with at your last job about football, they liked you.
Right.
You're the differentiator, not your marketing department with a faceless news. Nothing against marketing. But if you create content, you create a video answering as simple as answering the questions that your prospects are thinking about, enlightening them on some new ideas that they may not have thought about, interviewing people that they think would be interesting to hear from. Congratulations, Sam. You have your own show. It's called The Sam Show. And you do this content. You post it on LinkedIn. You invite people to connect. Say you have this show. They see you on their feed. You take that same content. You put it in Marketo. And they hear from you every month, 2 minutes. Here's Sam on video. Wear a hat, whatever. Make yourself a brand. I use my wife in my videos as a little thing to entertain people because you got to entertain. I mean, people are used to being entertained when they learn. And so in an entertaining way, you're going to teach them something. And when they are ready, dude, of course they're going to think of you. And chefs know this really well, right? They're cooking recipes on TV. Mario Batali's teaching you how to make linguine and clams and steak.
Yep.
When you go to the store and you want pans and you see his name, you're like, oh, now Mario Batali's my boy. I'm buying his pans. It's the same thing. Because the education, the one that's doing the educating and making people feel good, they're not even going to look at the competition. Versus what most people do, which is I'll follow up in 6 months. In the meantime, during those 6 months, when my computer starts to make a hard drive sound, because you're not top of mind, I'm Googling stuff. And I'm looking at all different types of PC manufacturers and Mac manufacturers, and maybe I pick you and maybe I don't. So that nurture track is super important, and you don't need marketing. It doesn't have to be fancy. You can look at my feed is my nurture track.
Okay.
That's it. It's as simple as doing what we're doing right now. And, you reach out to people, you interview them. Hey, this is a question that I always get from marketing directors. Google top challenges of marketing directors, top challenges of this, and you create a personality for yourself. You're a personable guy. And this is how you answer it. Maybe it's on a whiteboard, maybe it's on a TV, whatever the thing is. And you just start building that. You put that on your YouTube channel. You put it on LinkedIn. You put it on your site. You put it on your YouTube, on your Marketo track, and it's part of your personal brand. And when you progress in your sales career, imagine your next person interviewing you. Holy Christ, look at this guy. He's got his own show on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Well, that's educating his prospects on how they can be a little smarter.
So you like this story too. So back in mid-2017, I came across an app called Anchor app, ANCHOR. It's like a podcast distribution automation tool, right?
What does that mean exactly? I hear some, most of the things I hear about what things are, I don't understand. Like, what does that mean? Podcast, whatever.
So you've got your own show, Inside Sales Podcast, right? And it goes on Spotify.
Yeah.
The idea is if you were going to interview, what was that one woman's name that you interviewed back in February? She was really good. She was from Outreach, I think.
Jackie Lipinski?
Super solid podcast, right? Like with Anchor, what you would do is you would call Jackie from the Anchor app, and you would type her phone number, and it would automatically record the podcast. And then you just click submit, and it shoots it out to SoundCloud and Spotify and iTunes at the click of a button.
Let me ask you a question about that. That sounds really interesting to me because it takes me a long time to do the podcast editing. How does it do it? How does the quality?
The quality was pretty. It's been a year and a half since I've done it, so I'm not gonna vouch for the quality. But when I did it, I started a podcast called The CEO Insider because I realized, wait a minute, a lot of these business owners didn't want to set up meetings regarding HR technology, but maybe if I give them free media exposure up front, they might make them feel like a mini celebrity. They might, that might be the foot in the door to actually having a cup of coffee. And it ended up working really well with 10 episodes. That was right before I came to Marketo. And so now I'm working on creating a new podcast where I'm going to interview prospects, marketing, sales professionals, and I'm just going to use Anchor app. The only challenge is it has its own intro, the first 5 seconds are like.
Who cares, dude? Who cares? Nobody cares. Yeah. Dude, you're thinking about it the right way, dude. And this is the headline. The more people you talk to, the more money you make.
Yeah.
The more people you talk to, the less money you make. Talking to someone who's sending an email, talking to someone who's doing whether it's on a podcast or whatever, because that's going to lead to something.
Yeah.
Someone's going to like you. You're going to say, hey, what piqued your interest? What are you doing? Maybe that leads to an opportunity. Maybe it's just a great conversation, and there's nothing wrong with that either. Maybe that person, but you keep doing that, and man, dude, you'll light it up, dude. You're doing all the right things, buddy. Is there anything I can do to help you in any way? You're awesome.
Yeah, hold on. I wrote a couple of questions down. Hold on one sec. So one of the videos that I watched that was super interesting was the one on disruptive questions.
Yeah.
That really resonated with me well because in one of the slides you were talking about how let's just say the product that you're selling is this lock that you don't need a key, but you can unlock it with your mobile app. So, what questions can you be asking to disrupt the recipient's mindset and get them thinking in a different way? So my question is, when do you use, what's your strategy on when to use disruptive questions in your cold call script or the discovery calls?
So I use those very frequently in my cold outreach, whether it's through direct mail or cold emails. And I'll usually phrase it are you aware? Have you considered? Did you know? And what I'll do is I'll bring these things up because you're exactly right. I'll give you a great example of this. Most of the time, people don't really know what's possible. Let me explain to you what I mean by that in a couple of different ways. I have a client up the street, 20 minutes up the street, asked me to come in and do some sales training and coaching. I'm like, I don't even know if I can help you guys. Let me go in and just, like, what are your problems? He's like, I don't think we have any problems. We're booking meetings. Everything's fine. I'm like, well, let me go observe what you guys are doing. And I just watched the salespeople work. And what I realized when I was watching the salespeople work is the way they were doing email cadences was like this. 15 SDRs. They send one email in Outlook. Mm-hmm. They create a task in their CRM called T2, Touch 2. Follow up in 3 days. 3 days goes by. They go into the sent folder, find that sent email, forward it, write the second email, and then do touch 3 times all 15 people. Now, you ask the sales leader, do you have any problems? No. We're booking meetings. Until you say, are you aware that you could save yourself 300 hours by automating that? And to which the person said, what do you mean? Which led to conversations about tools like Marketo and Outreach that can automate the sending of emails so that reps have more time to get on the phone. And the more people you talk to, the more meetings you book, and the more meetings you book, the more money you make. Yep. I want to ask him, what's your problem? I don't have one. So oftentimes we have to connect the dot because people don't know what's possible. It's the same thing if you've been listening to me for a while with the thing that happened to me in the sneaker store. When my wife was in the mall and I just went in there.
Have you had your gate checked?
Nothing. You have a problem? No. Have you ever had your gate checked? What do you mean? And then all of a sudden I got pronated feet and I'm spending $180 on sneakers. That's what the best salespeople do, is that they make people aware of what's possible and what's no longer potentially safe coming up. It's the same thing with that computer question. Are you aware that when your computer's making that sound, it could mean that your hard drive's about to fail? Yeah. Are you aware that when only half of your grill is working, it could be a propane leak?
Hey, so back to the podcasting idea. What you just said resonates because it's all about how close can you get to your customer, like viscerally, how close can you get to them? And so the idea is if you have this podcast or you're just having conversations with prospects, you can ask those jobs to be done questions. And really, that's where you kind of come up with those disruptive questions, right? From their verbiage.
You are 100% right. And the biggest challenge you have, Sam, and anyone has, that's you or anyone, any age, is that most salespeople have never done the job of the person they're selling to. And there's always a disconnect between what the marketing messages are that they're given and how people actually talk about their job they're trying to get done. The lingo is completely different. In my last role, we were told, we save HR professionals time and money. And we hit the phones and email and we're getting obliterated because it's so generic and people don't talk like that. But when we did jobs, they sounded like this. We wanted to be less frazzled during open enrollment. We wanted fewer people knocking on our doors, asking us the same questions over and over again about their medical benefits. We're going to pull our hair out. That language is emotionally charged, and that's the lingo of how people speak. They'll give you the secret buying language, but you can't make it up, and your marketing department won't give it to you. You've got to go out and do what you're saying, which are do some jobs interviews on the podcast, people that just bought within the last 30 days, or shadow. Just go hang out with some customers and see how they're working and learn their lingo. Start a document called Customers Lingo. It's over at Basecamp. The Basecamp.com website is all customer lingo.
Nice.
And that's why it converts high, is because, as Robert Collier said, who's a famous copywriter, you're joining the conversation already happening in their mind. I don't have to translate what you're saying into what I care about. And that's what happens when people tell me what they do all the time. I literally have no idea what they're talking about. And when I confuse people, it takes too many calories to burn. And I'm just like, dude, I can't, I'm done. So it's a great thing that you're doing with the podcast. However you want to get closer to that audience. What trade shows are they going to? What podcasts are they listening to? What are they reading? What publications? I mean, all that stuff. You're gonna get more immersed in their lingo because, you've never been a CMO.
Yeah, exactly.
Nor do you want to be a CMO, probably.
Well, listen, Josh. Last thing, real quick, is so my goal for 2019 and 2020 is to be the number one account executive at Marketo. Like, that's really what I'm trying to do. And I'm just curious, if you were in my shoes, would you consider creating like a mentor network and sending a video or two a month of documenting kind of the journey of going from not the worst AE in the program to the best AE in the program, and send that out to 50 or 100 mentors or people that you want to be mentors.
Dude, Sam, you are blowing me away, buddy. I get to talk to a lot of people. You will be a top performer.
Thanks.
You're already thinking about it the right way. You're already making the right moves, dude. You're already doing everything right. I love the idea of documenting your growth.
Yep.
You send it to mentors, but I love the idea of just posting it to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Like, here's my AE. I'm starting out as an AE, and here's what I'm learning. And I love another great person to look at for inspiration is a woman by the name of Sarah Grotz.
Okay.
GOSTZ. She does this as well, where she just talks about her life. And it's fascinating. I think other AEs would resonate with that if you keep it real. Positive and negative stuff that happens. You know, what you said, the vulnerability is really what makes people connect with you because you're real. I tell the story of Sheryl Crow when she messed up singing her most famous song down in Fort Lauderdale. Instead of trying to patch it up, she's like, can you guys help me out? I forgot it. I'm getting old. She was vulnerable, and everyone got behind her because there's a charm to vulnerability. So be real. And just put that stuff on LinkedIn, man. Just post a couple minutes. This is what I learned today. It doesn't have to be a video. It could be a post.
Yeah.
It would be great for you as a brand of Brand Sam. I mean, Morgan Ingram's been doing this for a long time. When he was an SDR.
SDR Chronicles.
He just started from back in the day, dude. And I remember when he started that, I'm like, brilliant. I told every SDR, brilliant, 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 because you're not going to be working here your whole life.
Yeah.
But this is going to stay with you, and this is going to be your red X. It's going to separate you from the sea of white circle resumes, like you did when you got in the car, dude. So you're already making all the right moves. I think you'll find that mentors like me or whoever are open to talking to you.
Yeah. I'll
be more than happy to jump back on with you anytime you want, dude, and chat. And I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn and see your journey on my feed, man. You're doing awesome, buddy.
Hey man, as I'm sure many people have told you, like this is your content has been game changing, absolutely game changing. It's gonna change the trajectory of my career. I guarantee it. And I was really hesitant about paying $125 for the growth guide. That was the best purchase I've made in 2019.
What was it about that you liked so much?
To start, just a cold call script. And there's like 70 plays on there. It's all gold, but like just the cold call script alone, net at the end of the day would be worth $125, because what I was doing before, it's like different. I feel like I'm back in 6th grade and I was making 6 or 7 out of 10 shots, but my shot was kind of off, and so the coach is now making me keep my elbow in and like hand in the cookie jar, and it's like a little awkward at first, but like I'm starting to get it. So anyway.
I'm so happy for you, man. You're doing awesome, dude, and please continue to follow me. And if there's anything that I can do in terms of people to introduce you to or people in my network that I can connect you with, more than happy to do it, man. You're a good egg, buddy.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate your time, man. I'll talk to you soon, all right?
Take care, buddy.
Okay. Bye.